What are we drinking?
Today we have a bourbon smash. Now,
Oh,
I usually smash with blackberries, but this time we tried something a little different. We went with lemon, which gives it a very tangy, but the bourbon's nice and
does.
smooth.
Yeah, this is nice. I think we're here to tell you you can pretty much satisfy anybody with a bourbon something.
No excuses, no more of that. I don't drink dark liquor.
No, none of that. None of that at all.
You know, speaking of our last episode, I was networking with somebody recently who was telling me that they're in a very male-dominated industry. And sometimes they hate going to the networking events with some of the guys because the guys are all ordering scotch, Glenlivet in particular.
Yeah.
They're all like, I'm trying to hang with them. I can do it. They're just, this is so
No excuses. And just like the networking, figure it out.
There you go. Figure it out.
You'll find your routine, your rhythm. Anyway, so says Karen Sullivan, founder of Sullivan Solutions and Marketing from the C-Suite.
And I am Shay Nelson, founder of MSN Law Office, helping you hopefully do what it is that you're passionate about without worrying about all the legal stuff. So Karen, what kind of stuff are we talking about today?
Stuff. The really hard stuff.
Oh boy. And put on my thinking hat.
Exactly. How far can you go sharing your expertise versus making promises that you then have to deliver on?
Ooh.
And I know the legal field isn't always predictable.
It depends. There's my official answer.
That sounds about right. And we know the marketing is not always predictable. So what do we do with that? Customers want a guarantee.
Ooh, and as lawyers, I think we probably hate guarantees.
Then why am I paying you? Legitimately, that's the question you get.
Yeah. And I always like to put it in terms of minimizing risk, right?
Okay.
My job is to help you minimize the legal risk. I cannot guarantee ethically that we will completely avoid them. I tell people all the time, I'm not allowed to make any guarantees about outcomes. Now, that's just our ethics rules. Your industry may vary, but from a legal standpoint, I think there's two things. There's both the legal and there's what it is that you want to tell your clients or customers, right? So legally, I'm thinking, okay, what are we...
Well, I want to tell them I'm legal, so let's just get...
Well, yeah, but and I say this to all of my clients and prospects, right? There is, especially working with smaller businesses and nonprofits, there's a textbook answer and there's a real world answer. Okay?
Okay.
My job is to not just give you the legal textbook and tell you to figure it out. So, textbook answer, I don't want you to say anything that's fraudulent, right? I mean, there's something to be said for truth in advertising, right?
Right.
I don't want you to say anything that's going to be misrepresentative. There are times and places where we want to use disclaimers, right? For example, being an attorney, if you go and check out the blog, there's going to be a disclaimer down in the footer that says, hey, well, this is kind of the general information, same thing at the beginning of the podcast, right? This is the general information. These are best practices. The law can and does change. The devil is in the detail. We can talk about generally the law says this, but in your specific situation, there might be a set of facts that, oh, okay, now that you tell me that, now there's an exception to the rule. There's this gray area, this nuance that we need to dig into. And that's why I tell people you can't just get all your answers from Google or ChatGPT, right? Because if you're not asking about the exceptions, you're not getting those details.
Right.
So when you're thinking about, okay, I hear this from my consulting clients, right? Well, I want to say all these things on my website. Great. Can you really promise that particular outcome from your services? Or is it, hey, this is what I help people do and this is what I can't promise? There may be places in those consulting contracts where, we kind of put in that legalese that you've probably seen before and your eyes glazed over, where we talk about limitations of liability. We talk about warranties or the lack thereof, right? Sometimes you'll see this stuff in all caps. There's a reason we put those things in there. So yeah, legally we want to have that conversation around those things and disclaimers and things like that. But I think the practical thing, what exactly are you trying to tell your clients or customers about your business, right? What, like in plain English, and then I'll translate it to the legalese for you. What are you selling? What are you actually delivering? And what's a bridge too far? So here's a concrete example. In my engagement agreements, I mentioned, ethically, I'm not allowed to make any guarantees about results or outcomes, right? I can't guarantee what will happen with your trademark application. I can't guarantee what will happen in court. What I can tell you is I want you to be happy with my service. So if there is a problem, a question, a concern, I want you to come to me with it before you go to Google and leave a nasty review, right?
Right, but
Give me the opportunity to fix it.
If my trademark doesn't go through, I'm not going to be happy.
And there's a conversation there because you don't just get a rejection letter from the trademark office, right? You get an opportunity, you get what we call an office action, and there's an opportunity to respond.
Okay.
So there may be some legal arguments that we need to make. There may be things that we need to push back on. But if you immediately run to Google and say, my attorney didn't get my trademark through, and I'm like, well, if you just sat down and had a conversation with me, I could tell you what was going on and what our next steps are in the strategy, right?
Okay.
And so I try to make that clear with people up front.
So no isn't always a no.
Exactly. There's almost always a next step, right? So we need to have that conversation. And so that's where I think that kind of, there's a little bit of give and take there of like, this is what I can promise and this is what I can't. If you're selling marketing services, do you tell your clients, hey, I can guarantee we're going to double your sales in the next 12 months?
Well, I absolutely can't. But if I don't, then they want to know, well, what are you going to do? Why am I going to pay you money to do more of, either what they think they're doing or already, or things that they don't think maybe are worthwhile? So put you between a rock and a hard place, right? I mean, because ROI is the thing.
Yeah.
ROI. I need to get 2x, 3x, whatever they've got in their head that last read online, they need to get that kind of return. And they saw somebody else who got that kind of return. And they saw somebody else who did this. And so it's very difficult to get the deal and tell them and be totally honest just how much hard work it is. It is. Same thing, like you said, going back and forth with the trademark patent office, whatever. It's not always one thing. There's no magic bullet.
Right. And I mean, I think in your example, assuming like ethically you can do this, because I know for some of my consulting clients, we've put in their agreements, okay, this is your sort of standard agreement that you're going to present to your customers or clients. Mm-hmm. We're going to put an optional paragraph in here around marketing, right? That you're giving me permission to use your name or your business name in a case study or to talk about the results that we got for you. And that is one of the times I will tell clients, if you have a client that objects to this, this is one paragraph you can remove without even calling me. That is perfectly okay, right? But if you can do that, you may not be able to say, hey, if we do X, you're going to get Y results.
Right.
But you can say, hey, what I've done for other clients is X, Y, and Z, and these are the types of results that we've gotten. Now, I can't guarantee that you'll get the same results because every business is different, but I can demonstrate that I'm not just, I get these spam emails all the time. Hey, I took a look at your website and there's amazing things we could do to like fix it up and get you better SEO. You want to have a conversation?
Sure.
From, random person at hotmail.com? No.
Well, there's 2 or 3 things there. And first of all, not to shock you, but there is no ethics standards in the marketing industry.
No way.
Yeah. And, I'd go out on a limb here and say what falls under marketing anyway is a lot more broad and random than what falls under the legal umbrella. So you got a lot of stuff, no rules, and people consuming information differently. So just because I have achieved results for client A, that might have been a pillar client. That might have been absolutely on top of their CRM. They might have been doing all of the right measurements. They might have put in the hard work of going through all the foundational marketing, the core bedrock messaging and what we will say, what we won't say. And a lot of times founders in particular don't have a lot of patience to do that hard work.
Yeah, I would imagine for you, there's a big difference between I know my target market, I know our core message, I know who I'm trying to reach, versus I've started this business, I'm spinning my wheels, and I just need somebody to help me get the sales through the door. Don't you have a magic bullet?
Right. They just want sales.
Yeah.
A lot of times that they just want sales. They want an easy cafeteria plan.
Mhm.
Well, how many SEO keywords do I get on plan A versus plan B? And, what's the tier? And me to tell them that before I even know anything about their business, right? So first of all, same thing, the best example there, what's a small business?
Right.
Right?
Because we
Well,
say that a lot, and the definition is all over the place.
all over the place. Technically, a small business can have up to 500 employees,
Right.
according to the SBA, right?
Yeah.
That's the rule of thumb I use. So that's that. And suddenly, just like you, I find myself saying, well, it depends. And some things can be intuitive for the right people. I do believe that. Not to get into a right brain, left brain conversation, but some people in the creative field, I truly believe, see the connections and see the messaging and see the patterns that need to be pulled out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very difficult for someone who doesn't quite think that way, right? So that's a little hocus pocus already. And then we talk about all these other things that have to go into it, but none of them are the same. You can't have a formula for things that are when everything's a variable.
That's totally fair. I mean, I think some of that applies even in the legal world. It's like, yeah, I've got a pretty good idea of what, it's professional services agreement will look like and what we're going to cover. And, I do a lot of flat fee work, so I got a pretty good idea of what it will take. But your marketing services agreement is going to look very different from a healthcare consultant versus, my HR consultant, versus somebody else. Right. And so,
Well, I think we tend to see, we as humans, we don't pick up the differences. And legalese is something that we don't pay enough attention to anyway.
yeah.
It's just all that extra text, those 2 pages of text that we just have to sign on the bottom line. And most of us don't read it. And Apple has taught us that. Microsoft has taught us terms of agreement. Nobody reads that.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer and I don't read the Apple ones. I mean, I think I pulled it up one day just out of curiosity. And the one when you update your iPhone is probably a couple hundred pages.
Oh my gosh.
I can promise you nobody but their lawyers has read that document.
No, but you have to agree to it.
Right.
And it is part of the package. And to your point, yeah, it's very different from something you're going to sign at your doctor's office.
Right.
Even if it still has 20 pages. So just used to not reading it. Well, same thing happens in marketing. We just take things for granted as consumers, the stuff that happens behind the scenes. We gloss over that. Something that looks easy, we assume must be easy. Websites are a perfect example of that. And, fun fact, I go back to literally 7th grade art class. Mr. Dunn said, it's the hardest thing in the world is to make something look simple.
Yeah.
And to know when to quit.
That's one I struggle with as an attorney because so often the questions I get from clients, they're very simple for me. And so sometimes I think, oh my, I can't believe anybody would actually pay me to do this. This is so basic. And having to
Absolutely.
remember that, yeah, it's basic because you're the expert in it. It's not basic for this client who's either starting or growing this thing they're really passionate about. And my job, to your point about all the legalese, is to help them understand it. Here's why all this legalese is here. Here's what it means in plain English. This is why we've got to have it, even if it's a 1 in a million chance that this will come up in your business, right? And that's why we put in, those waivers and disclaimers and all that stuff, right? And why we do it a certain way and why it sounds, like gibberish. Because if things go wrong, this is what the court expects to see. Yes. This is what we're going to use to defend you.
And to some extent, we've come to accept all those pages and pages that we don't read.
Yeah.
Accountability for those. We've been taught that you can probably fight anything.
Unfortunately, yes, if we're being perfectly honest, right? I tell people contracts sort of set the ground rules for any sort of business transaction or relationship. But at the end of the day, if you're getting a divorce from a business partner or a client, whatever the dispute is, there's always a bit of room for argument and fighting. There's a bit of tug and war. How long am I willing to tug the rope? And how long are you willing to? How much pain do we want to or are willing to inflict on this person that we don't like anymore? Right. But without that, because everybody goes, well, why am I going to pay you to draft the contract? Well, without it, we don't have any rules. We don't have anything to work with, right? So good luck with your dispute at that point. I've got nothing to work with to defend you. I've got nothing to point to say, well, this is what that person should have done.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're not the be-all, end-all, if we're being honest, right? Not a total get-out-of-jail-free card. I even say they have to be living, breathing documents because at some point, human nature, people will people. Somebody will do something either wildly stupid or wildly unpredictable.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And you will call me and go, I just had this crazy situation with a client. And I'll go, yeah, update your contract because
you don't see
nobody saw that coming.
For
right?
sure.
And that's just the God's honest truth. And I know sometimes my profession is not the greatest about doing that. And I tell people, not because I'm trying to sell you on more hours or sell you another package of services or another project. Just because these are humans that we're dealing with.
Right.
This is how it works.
So we're dealing with humans, but at the end of the day, the law is the law.
And the law changes.
The law changes, but whenever you go through the court or show up in court, the law that day is the law. So founders are held accountable to those legal expectations.
Yeah.
In marketing, the founder is the law. Right? There was 4th generation entrepreneur. So I grew up in a family business. And one of the things that my dad really liked to do was go to those, I want to say self-help, motivational speakers. There was a motivational speaker, late 70s, early 80s, used to say the founder is God. Wrote a book, whole 9 yards. But that really stuck with me because that is true. In the business, the founder is God. His rules. Yeah. He's, her signature on
his or her way or the highway.
Exactly. And so when it comes to making some of the decisions around messaging, marketing, features versus benefits, and how we're going to sell this product that's very near and dear to the founder's heart. So some of them care more about their businesses and their products than their own kids.
Yeah.
Very, very emotional.
So it's very personal.
It is very personal. So it's really difficult to do the right thing because they're trained, have to know better. They have to know their business. They have to be aware. They stayed up last night doom scrolling on Instagram and saw 2 or 3 ads that caught their attention. So why can't we do that? And we don't know any kind of results that ad is getting.
Right.
We don't know anything that went into it, but you want to look like that and you want to get those results, or you want to do this, or you want to do that, or you don't want to do that, but you want that cafeteria plan to pick the price point you want to pay.
Because we all pick a price point.
We all pick a price point.
And we know what we want, but we also know what we want the price point to be. And sometimes those two things don't match in reality.
Marketing is not like that. Freelancers, you've got your paralegals, you've got your junior lawyers, the evolving next generation of experts.
Yeah.
But there's good ones and there's bad ones, just like there's good and bad lawyers, good and bad marketers too. What can you say? Because and what can you not say? Really tricky.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one, because sometimes I have to remind people that it is true what they say. You get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
When I've had junior attorneys or paralegals or even like law students, law clerks in the office, say it's a project that's a little more open-ended, so we are doing the old-fashioned hourly thing. Yeah, their hourly rate is lower than mine because they have less experience. But my job as the managing attorney is I'm not going to give them that at their lower hourly rate, because it's going to take them significantly longer than it would take me.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, that would make your bill higher. And that's not what I'm here to do. Right. So sometimes there are things that are worth paying for. Yeah, you can go on Fiverr.com and find somebody to do your website.
You can.
Is that $5 an hour or whatever it is? Are you really getting what you think you're getting? What exactly are they, quote unquote, guaranteeing about their services or their website? Probably much of nothing. Or you go to somebody like Karen and say, hey, truly, I don't know what this is costing. Maybe you're even being honest. I'm talking to several different people I met at the networking thing last week, right?
Right.
And I'm trying to figure this out. What do I need? What would you recommend for a business like mine? What do you even need to know?
Yeah.
We talked in another episode about AI, and I think this can maybe be one of the better uses for it is, all right, here's my kind of business. Here's where I'm having success. Here's what's not working. Give me some ideas. What do I need to go ask, right? I'm starting to see clients do that. What do I need to go ask an attorney? What do I really need an attorney for? Like, what's not working in my marketing? What else do you need to know to help me figure that out? And then I can go to somebody you and be like, all right, so here's where I'm stumbling. What would you recommend to fix it? Give me a few options.
Right.
And then I can go, okay, well, this is in my budget. This isn't yet, but I can work towards that.
Well, and that's, unfortunately, that's where a lot of conversations really come to a head. And I've learned over time, you might as well lead with it, because if this many zeros scares you, then we're done talking. I can't do what you're asking me to do for that number. Yes, you can get the paralegal or the fresh out of college designer. They don't have the experience, but they're still going to charge you by the hour of their time at the value that it's worth. And they're probably going to downsize the time just to get the experience. But are you really getting what you want? And typically no. And I'll throw this in there too. We talked about the law changing, technology changes. And if I had $1 for every time I've heard, well, we had our website done, but it doesn't work anymore. It didn't do this, they didn't do that, they didn't. Well, probably because a lot of those things didn't exist when you had your website done, right? It changes so fast, and it's a perfect example of the simpler it is, the better. But if it's simple, it's probably really complex, except that simple is really relative, because we all have slightly different patterns of using websites. Some people gravitate towards some sites more than others just because the way they navigate through the user interface. And that gets really complex. You might want to drop down with 8 services, but most users are going to, that's the user equivalent to having their eyes glaze over. So how do you argue with a founder for that? Right?
As a lawyer, right, I am naturally words on paper, not a super visual person.
Mhm.
And every time I've had a marketing person say, hey, we need an image for this blog post. You really need to add some graphics here. This is a lot of text. And I'm like, well, why? It's important information. You should sit down and read it and digest it.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, just because that works for me doesn't mean that that works for my clients, my target market. And so that's one I struggled with for a long time.
That's real, and I think that's one of the things we have in common. I am more of a verbal, put it in writing kind of
Yeah.
person. But what you also don't understand, well, you do. I know you do because we've had this discussion several times. It isn't just the image for the viewer, it's the image for the search engines. The search engines need to know that you have an image because people react to images. It needs to be a relevant image. It needs to be a unique image, one that you own. So all of these hurdles, and it is a pain. It really is.
Veering back, are you, in the marketing world, seeing people where you kind of feel like they're maybe overpromising things to their customers, or their marketing language is getting a little bit wishy-washy?
I do. I do. And some of it maybe comes back to the introvert in me. How do they get by with saying that? How do they prove that? And sometimes I really think it doesn't matter that they prove it because they get the conversation, right?
And this is where I go back to that sort of like textbook answer versus real world
Yeah.
answer. Again, being perfectly honest, right? See the disclaimer at the front of the video, but being perfectly honest, sometimes small businesses get away with a little bit more because you're not as big, it's not getting as many visitors, your marketing's not hitting as many people. We talk about this with independent contractors, right? Everybody's doing it, who's getting caught, right? So sometimes there's a little bit of that. And that's where I go back to my job is to help you understand the risk, what we can do to minimize those risks. Here's what'll happen. Here's the worst case scenario if you get caught
Right.
overselling it, your advertising is completely false. Maybe that's reputational. Maybe it's a full-blown lawsuit, right?
Right.
But by definition, we're not the size businesses where I'm worried that the FTC is going to come knocking, right?
Yeah.
I don't hear too much of the attorney general going after small businesses, right? But you never know when you're going to get that disgruntled customer that's like, I got the time and the money to kill. I will see you in court.
Yes.
So for me as the lawyer, I'm like, all right, hear what you're saying, what we need to put in this contract, what you're looking for. I kind of have a sense of what the legal risks are here. Give me a few of your proposals so I can see what you're telling people, like in your own words.
Yeah, that's real.
Let me see a little bit of that. What are you promising? Because I want to make sure that you're promising this in your proposal. Let's make sure your contract actually matches that.
Right.
It matches it in legalese, sure, but let's make sure that there's some synergy here. Let me take a look at your website and make sure that these are going to work together and that terms of service you borrowed from somebody else's website actually fits with what you're saying.
Well, that's where our industry starts to overlap.
Yeah.
It really is, because you start looking at those things.
But I think I heard from you that, from a marketing, or at least prior to AI,
I don't know, is it my contract?
No, I was going to say, like in the world of SEO, I think you were the person that told me that if you wanted to rank on Google, they expect you to have a privacy policy.
Yes.
Now, if that's still true in the world of AI, who knows? But I find myself telling clients that is like, look, even if you don't think you want it from a legal standpoint, all the marketing folks I talk to, really Karen, but all the marketing folks I talk to say you got to have it too.
You do.
And now we can talk about all the legal reasons why you can't just copy somebody else's, right?
So some of the hurdles you have to jump through, and where this really becomes evident, I can tell you have to have a privacy policy. Google requires you to, have a privacy policy, terms of service, whatever. Typically, especially if you are taking anybody's personal information. And what is personal information?
Basically everything.
It may only be an email.
Yeah.
But getting their email address to get them subscribed to your email marketing or whatever, then that's personal information. So suddenly there's a lot of legal ramifications there that we just don't pay attention to.
Right.
When somebody quotes you a 5-page website, does it include a privacy policy? Because if it doesn't, your website's not done.
Yeah.
And usually in terms of service. So those are required. And where you see the validation on that, if you don't have those posted, do a lot of email marketing through MailChimp. That's a vendor I have worked with for a long time, and
Yeah.
and like they're easy to work with and reasonable. For their services, yes, they will require that you have a privacy policy on your website. You have to put that in before you set up your account. I was investigating. I have not personally used them for SMS marketing yet.
Okay.
I was investigating that for a client, and you have to have a specific SMS or text messaging privacy policy as well online, where people can find it, that you can refer them to if you're going to send anybody text messages.
Yeah, I've had a couple of clients ask for that.
Yeah. And so I don't even know what sent us down that road, but it is real. And
Yeah.
you do have to, does not have to be onerous to get that, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. Does your lawyer have to write it? No, but you probably want your lawyer to look at it, because the general stuff may not cover you.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I kind of boil it down. Like, legally, a lot of the stuff that we hear about when we talk about privacy policies, California's got their big Privacy Act. Everybody's heard about GDPR, right? In the US, we don't have kind of a national framework for this stuff yet. Almost all of those laws, as we're recording today, there's a threshold before they technically apply, right? So for small businesses, generally, you're not big enough, right? You don't have the millions in revenue or the traffic for those laws to technically apply. But we're at a point now where consumers and clients expect to see it. Google and the search engines expect to see it.
Google requires that you're going to get dinged in whatever algorithm is out there if you don't.
And at the end of the day, even if, say, the GDPR, the California privacy stuff doesn't technically apply, you can still get dinged under either the state or federal Deceptive Trade Practices Act for telling people you're doing one thing when you're actually doing something different with their data.
Right.
So this is why I tell people, be very, this is why I say as a lawyer, I don't think you should just go copy some random company's privacy policy, because you may be promising something in this document that I promise you haven't read, that you're not actually doing, right? When we get back to the disclaimers and the liability waivers and things like that, I don't pretend to be a website guru, but the number of small business owners that I talk to that, a website doesn't collect anything. I'm like,
yes, it does.
That's impossible. Every website out there is at least running Google Analytics. Like, if your website developer didn't add the little Google Analytics language, you did not get what you paid for.
A simple contact form.
Right, a simple contact form, Google Analytics, the Facebook or Meta pixels, some data is being collected.
Yes.
You may not know what to do with it as a small business owner. I don't pretend to be a guru here, but you're collecting something, and we got to be honest with people about what you're doing with that information. So that's why I tell people, don't just go copy something from somebody else's website that looks, I got a marketing company, they got a marketing company. I just steal that privacy policy in terms of use.
I'd be very careful with that. I think in a pinch, I would not hesitate to copy or to use the default terms of service privacy policy. If you're using like a Squarespace or a GoDaddy or whatever, there are those defaults out there that probably won't commit you. They're going to be so generic, though, that they might not cover you.
Yeah.
They'll be good enough for Google, but they might not protect you. But if you that one resource, and again, depends on Depends on your budget. It really does.
Well, and again, be honest, right? I work with small businesses and nonprofits. Sometimes when clients are coming in, here are the 6 different things we need to get done.
Yeah.
Priority number 1 might be that professional services agreement and not the website terms of use and privacy policy, right?
Right.
But again, we're having that conversation about what are the risks of grabbing the one from Squarespace or whatever and saving that for when the budget permits.
Yeah.
And as long as you understand the risk, right, I've done my job. Hey, go ahead and start planning for this down the road. We need to get to it at some point. But yeah, I get it. Something else has to take priority sometimes. That's fair. That's part of the job.
It is part of the job. And I'm going to circle this around to say that's what you get for working with professionals who are experienced, expert, and dedicated to working with small business founders.
Yeah.
Because we're willing to work through that with you and weigh those priorities, right?
Yeah.
So I am not lightly telling you to go use the Squarespace terms of service, but if that legal review and regeneration of that content isn't in your budget, we'll put the money where it needs to go for the biggest return on your investment.
Right. And tell you, hey, go ahead and start saving for this for the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the real return on investment, because we treat your investment just like we treat our own.
Yeah.
Which is, let's put it where it's going to do the most good, keep us the safest, us the best, and whittle away at the things later as they need to be. And those conversations, those choices, those are different for everyone. I said founder is God, right? Well, different gods make different choices. and that is part of a conversation. That's a get to know you.
Yep.
Dive into what your priorities are, what's important to you, what's your budget. And that's why I've gotten a lot less shy about coming out and just saying, how much money can you throw at this? Because marketing and excuse me,
that is a bucket that does not have a bottom.
Marketing does not. It is a black hole.
Yeah.
And you better come into it knowing what you can spend and what you think you want to get out of it. If you come in and just tell me more sales, you haven't thought through it.
Yeah.
And we'll have that conversation. And honestly, I think any professional service bottom is questionable.
Yeah, I mean, in the legal world, there's always something we could be doing. There's
how
something,
much?
right?
How much?
Yeah, but
you're kind of over the.
Is that really gonna protect your business? Is it really gonna make things better? Right. I mean,
right.
My job is in this sort of outside general counsel role. I am the equivalent of your primary care doctor, right? Like these are not emergencies, right? This is not even a trip to urgent care, right? This is mostly the stuff you need to be doing to stay healthy as the business grows. Some of this we can kick down the road a little bit,
and
right?
Ironically, it tends to be the stuff we put off, just like with our general physician.
Exactly. So, I get it. And I think that's one of the things that you can't get from Google or AI is somebody that can really sit down and tell you, well, yeah, we can worry about this, right? We can worry about your privacy policy and, what latest thing California has passed in the GDPR.
Yeah.
As a small business, do you need to? And how much do you need to? And how much of this really matters? And what are your clients and customers really going to come ask you about? And, is that more important than your trademark or your HR stuff or your contract? Like, where does this all weigh in the grand scheme of things? So many of my professional advisors, consultant type clients, sometimes maybe just that disclaimer at the foot of the website that you're going to stick in all of your YouTube videos is top priority, because ethically you need to remind people, I've got some medical clients. Ethically, you need to remind people like, I'm trying to educate the public, but this general advice may not be the right answer for you.
Yeah. Pretty much nothing is one size fits all.
It's not. And I think that's one thing that I think sometimes small business owners would love to have. Like, I'd love to be able to come to you with my website and be like, can you get me more traffic?
Sure.
But is more traffic going to make a difference, right? Is that going to translate to more consultations? Is that going to translate to the type of consultations that actually close and become clients?
Right.
And I think that's your point about really thinking through, what do you want here?
Absolutely. And I think, if especially for business to business, if you're truly in the the term we're looking for here is conversion. And if you're looking for your website to truly convert into sales, that's a pretty heavy lift. Most websites are designed to translate into a conversation, so that your salespeople, the one-on-one, can come to play, and that's really the return. If you're selling product, whatever, direct to consumer kinds of sales, that's a completely different animal. And there's a lot of different animals.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it before and I will continue to say it. I don't care what kind of business you're running, your new job is marketing. And I'm the kind of lawyer that will tell you, like, yeah, we can do all kinds of stuff with your agreements, your waivers, your limitations of liability, disclaimers, terms of use, privacy policies. If you haven't figured out the marketing, it's all for naught.
And I don't think you ever actually figure it out 100%.
That's true. It is very much an evolving beast.
You ratchet it up.
Yeah.
You adjust and react to change and keep improving. So it's more of a religion.
That's a good way to put it, now that we've scared off half the audience.
Exactly. And I don't use that lightly. I really don't. And maybe that becomes an entire separate episode. The religion of marketing.
That sounds like a good one. We'll definitely
gonna need a really stiff drink for that one.
Yeah, I don't know what sort of weird take on a communion drink we do for that, and how many people we offend in the process, but I think there is a lot, because immediately I get what you're saying, but I think for people that don't know us, I could see people kind of running off in a weird direction with that. But there is something to the idea that marketing, much like your legal stuff, much like these disclaimers that we started talking about, isn't something you just do one time.
It's not.
It's something that grows and scales with the business. It's something that will change as the business changes and evolves, as your customer base. Your target market might stay the same, but what they're looking for and how they're looking for it changes. And so your legal and marketing kind of grows with that. In much the same way that if you're a person of faith, your faith grows and changes and evolves and develops over time. Like, it's not what your faith was when you were a small child in Sunday school.
Absolutely.
At least I hope not.
No, the world is a changing place.
Yeah.
Technology, allowances for, acceptance and conversations, and
yeah, like your marketing plan's not the yellow pages anymore, because we've got Google, right?
It's not.
What was working on Google is changing because we've got AI now, right? Legal is constantly changing. So yeah, you have to adapt a bit.
And if you don't like that, give it up now. Roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, every entrepreneur I talk to, like, the reason that we love this so much is because the challenge is constant.
It's a new job every day.
Every day, right? Every day is something a little bit different. I think that's why we love what it is that we do. But it's also a lot to keep up with.
So what's your safety net?
My safety net, again, we're talking about, we started out talking about disclaimers and what do you say in your marketing and what's a bridge too far. And at the end of the day, even setting aside, deceptive trade practices and what's the fair trade or the trade commission, Federal Trade Commission, going to crack down on and things like that. At the end of the day, the type of clients that I like to work with, and I think that you like to work with, they're in it because they're really passionate about what they do. And whatever service they're providing is a core part of their identity, and that marketing reflects that. Yes. So being true to who you are and being true to the type of clients that you want to serve should come across in your marketing, obviously, but I think it should also come across in your legal.
Absolutely.
And I might put that in some legalese because I know what the courts expect if things don't work out, and inevitably there will be a situation where things don't work out. But I want to work with people to kind of bridge that, and not just here's the generic disclaimer or limitation of liability or waiver or warranty or whatever, right? There's plenty of that you can probably Google your way into. Don't, you'll make all kinds of horrible mistakes. But and I see where people butcher this stuff because they change things that they don't know they shouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
But setting aside all that legalese, right? It should be a team effort. Your safety net should be, what do I want my business to reflect? You don't want to be that horrible handyman with the 1-star Yelp reviews that doesn't do what you said you were going to do. And a good lawyer, even if it's not me, a good lawyer will work with you to make sure that legal stuff and your marketing stuff and what you're actually saying to your clients in those one-on-ones all meshes together so that you can be authentic.
I think that's well said. And like so many of our conversations, the marketing slingshot on that is going to be as much as, yes, you want that team effort that's here to make sure it reflects on what you truly want for your business. That's a slingshot as well, because we also want to challenge you to get outside your own head and your own perceptions, not to change your mission or your vision, but to change how it's landing with the people that you're trying to engage with, whether it's employees or customers or clients, however you define that. True trusted advisors should be the ones that challenge you to get just a little better and attract more people. And they're not going to be able to do that. No one can do that without getting to know you and really getting to understand what your vision is so that we can help you fulfill it.
Absolutely. Well, I would toast, but apparently we have finished off these very delicious beverages.
Which I think we've got it down to, that must have been the right amount of beverage to get us to the right time.
Either that or I'm going to have to pour a little bit heavier so that, we can continue sipping through these episodes. But
Well, twist my arm.
Well, hopefully while you're watching, you have plenty of beverage left as you're enjoying these episodes. Definitely make sure to leave us some likes, some comments. If you've got some great bourbon recipes or other recipes, I think we're open. We've done a tequila before. I might have to sneak in a Hennessy maybe, but definitely drop us some recipe ideas.
This is a diverse podcast.
There we go. Diversity in a good way. Hey, theory that, we're too old for vodka. Once you get out of your 20s.
You think so?
Yeah.
Now I get a challenge.
Okay. Well, if you find a good vodka drink that doesn't have me hungover the next day, and I will come back in the comments and tell you if Karen got me hungover the next day. And offline, we'll talk about my experiences with gin and why I leave that alone. So I tend to stick to the dark liquor.
No complaints from this side of the table.
All right. Well, use that in your comments then. Till next time. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Executive Pour Podcast. Make sure you check out the show notes on executivepourpodcast.com. And make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and tell all your friends to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, even on YouTube. Check out the video versions. And you can find us on social media as well. Until next time, the bar is open.